Actually, as some of you probably know, once you get into the whole issue of benefits for children, the feds and the provinces have an important role. And I would like to say this is actually an area in which we've kind of got a structure set up. We've made a bit of progress, and not nearly enough. But basically, long story short, in 1998, the feds and the provinces, I want to say revised, that isn't quite right, came up with the Canada Child Tax Benefit and the National Child Benefit Supplement. Basically an effort to support low and modest income families, to recognize the importance of children, to help reduce the depth of poverty.
Press this.
Which one?
Okay. This one right here.
This one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I'm at. And then we'll talk about the Ontario Child Benefit later. It's kind of complicated to explain the relationship. It doesn't matter. What it means is if you're low or modest income, at the end of the month, you get a check. And the provincial and and you're eligible, which is most people who file an income tax, whether or not they have to, they are eligible to pay taxes. So I thought I'd just use this chart. It's sometimes striking to people to show that the level of public investment we have now in transfers.
What happened there?
I don't know. This is the one. This is the one I wanted.
There's the one you want.
Yeah, that's the one I want. Anyway, already we're having a bit of an impact, or maybe a better way to say it is, things would be absolutely abysmal if we didn't even have the series of transfers that we have now. So if you look at Ontario, it's fifth from the right, and the child and family poverty rate would have been about 25% if we didn't have these taxes, and with what we have now, it's down to 14%. Some of you will know the issue of measuring poverty is complicated. I'll leave it at that. It was just a visual. And the other thing, I thought this was a good chart for this evening, which is looking at average income from lowest, middle, and highest decile families with children over 20 years. Basically shows you not only have incomes for the lowest 10% of families been basically flat, hardly keeping up with inflation, so for the middle income group, too, to go from roughly 78,000 to 92,000 over 20 years, including about 8 to 10 years of very active economic growth, is quite unacceptable, and you can see where the top has gone. So basically, Canada's taken a life cycle approach to addressing poverty reduction, and I'll argue that the Canada Child Tax Benefit and the National Child Benefit, in a sense, also address inequality. And this is the federal contribution. To make a long story short, about 90% of children in Canada get something out of that program. It goes from the maximum all the way down to a very small amount per month in recognition of the importance of raising kids. So as we said below, it's non-taxable, it's progressive, it's refundable based on your previous year's income tax, paid monthly, and I guess some low-income people would be happy to say that it's also quite non-stigmatizing. Nobody knows if you get it or you don't, and you don't have to report anything other than on your regular income tax form. And then Ontario initiated its child benefit to support low and modest income families. Similarly, it's not dependent on labor force status. Parents on social assistance, and as well as those in the labor market or on some other form of income support are largely, I won't say every single category, but largely eligible for some amount of the child benefit. Maximum now is $1,100. It's going up, scheduled to go up, and you'll see there up to $1,310 in 2014. And as I said, it's administered in a fairly straightforward way by the feds. So who's eligible? And I thought that this is actually a new chart that we recently got for some Ontario bureaucrats. It shows that indeed, while the maximum rate now may be $1,100, you can have an income for, if you have one, this one goes according to child, up to $33,000 net income and still receive some portion of the Ontario Child Benefit. After that, it cuts off. So there's some element, I would suggest, of reducing inequality there. So what impact have benefits had? Well, the feds have done a couple of fairly sophisticated studies, I think I'd use that word, a simulation, showing a decrease of children living in poverty. as a result of the NCB. And in Ontario, we know that even just from 2008 to 9, fewer children lived in poverty, and we know that over that time the benefit went up. So we would certainly, I guess, I'm not sure one can directly, you cannot assume direct correlation, but certainly, or direct result, but certainly a correlation. I should add in all of this, it's really important to remember that 1 in 3 children in Ontario who's in poverty has a parent who works full-time, so the labor market has a lot to do with this. It's also important to mention that the impact of the Ontario Child Benefit has been less favorable to some families than others. When they introduced the Ontario Child Benefit, and some of us think that this was not at all unrelated, it was there were many motivations, including an important, I think, interest in restructuring social assistance and some of the basic needs benefits for parents. So as a result, if you're on social assistance, you do not get the same amount of child benefit, for example, and help me out if I'm not right here, as another family that would have that same low amount of low income from a different source. So what's needed? What do we think is needed? Well, Ontario Campaign 2000, a wide range of partners across the province, thinks we need both higher minimum wages, because the labor market's so important in the whole picture, as well as a full child benefit. I say full because at the federal level we talk about that as well, and I guess the balance of who pays what is a complicated one we're not going to solve tonight. But basically, if we want to talk about a pathway out of poverty, which would help to reduce that inequality gap for many, a lone parent with 1 child who works full-time, we're calling that a minimum of 34 hours, at $12 an hour, and we know we're not there yet for minimum wage, and a full child benefit of $5,400 would rise above the poverty line. Obviously, we have to worry about people who are not able to be in the labor market as well, but I think it's an argument for why we need both the better public policies and better labor market, better jobs. And that's it.